All right, so we're going to now look at graphing supply. And for supply, it's going to be a lot like demand. If you were to look at this instruction sheet, again, we're using the equilibrium one, so just look at the first two steps. But what you have on your tab in the module for graphing supply will just have those first two steps. We're going to ask the same questions. What item are we supposed to graph as we read these word problems? And the second question, did the price of that item change? If we say yes, we're dealing with a change in price for our variable. We will not draw a shifting second curve, and we'll just be dealing with a change now in quantity supplied. If we say no, then that means the quantity supplied is changing at every price level, and we will have to shift that curve to the right if it's an increase in supply at every price level, or to the left if there's a decrease in quantity supplied at every price level. And then we would look at the non-price list down here for supply to see what is causing the change. Okay? A few things about the curve. You can see that price is still on the y-axis. Quantity supplied now is on the x-axis. And you can see that the supply curve goes up and to the right in terms of its slope, where demand was down and to the right. And that's because of the positive relationship of price and quantity supplied. The law of supply says when price increases, quantity supplied also increases. Producers can make more money when the prices increase because that helps them cover their cost and make a profit, possibly. So they're always going to react positively to higher prices. Prices are what we charge consumers. So that means they can benefit. Since we are dealing with supply, we're only going to look at things through the perspective of the producer. And for right now, we're going to kind of shelve what we learned about what's happening with the law of demand for now. We'll put them back together eventually. I'm going to, again, read a couple problems. Some of them might be on the ones you're working today. Some may not. But we'll go ahead and just kind of work through these and ask our questions and see how it all kind of works. The first one I'm going to read, it says, the cost of a microchip falls or decreases. What happens in the market for computers? So we ask ourselves the first question, what item am I supposed to graph? And if you were to answer that based on this problem, the cost of microchips falls, what happens in the market for computers, you can tell that they are asking us about the product of computers. So that will be our product. So I put that up here. That'll go in the box marked product. And then we're going to ask the second question on our instructions, which is, did the price of that item, computers, change? Well, in the word problem I read, the cost of microchips falls. Remember, cost and price are two different things. Cost is something that a business incurs in making the product, where price would be something they charge for the final good or service they produce to the consumer. So their cost has decreased, which has made it easier to make their product, but that is not the price. So we're answering no, did the price change? And so we're going to look at our non-price determinants, and we're going to look through them. And the first one says, is it a change in the cost of an input? Inputs are factors of production, land, labor, or capital. Well, microchips are human-made, and they are something we need to make the final product. So they are an input, they are capital, physical capital. And so what we'd put in the variable would be a change in the cost of an input. Okay, so now we're ready to graph, and so for your graph you want to draw exactly what you see here, the y-axis with price. I'm putting the letter P there to represent price. And then quantity supplied on the x-axis down here. And so we can just put QS for that. I went ahead and drew a supply curve, S1. Remember that this curve would be correct if we were able to plot point it just like this using a supply schedule. But for now we're just going to assume this is correct as we're more concerned with the general direction of the shift. And since we don't have the actual data of all the different prices of computers and all the different quantities being supplied and made available for sale by the various computer companies. So we'll just assume that this is correct. So when microchips fall in terms of their cost to the company can afford to buy more microchips, which means they can for the same price or less, make more computers, so they could increase their supply. So what we're going to do is we're going to shift the supply curve to the right, just like we did with demand, except for we're going to go to the right. So I'll just draw a little line here that shows that. And then on that side of it, we'll draw a parallel line, and then we'll label that S2. Okay? So we can see that there's an increase in the supply of computers when that happens. Okay, and when you're working these problems, if any of the non-price determinants would cause a decrease in overall supply at every price level, then you would shift to the left. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now I'm going to read the problem that may be your final problem on your sheet. It says the price of pizza changes from $5 to $7. What happens to the market for pizza? So we ask our questions in the instructions. What item am I supposed to graph? And the first answer we would give is pizza. Okay, the next question we would ask ourselves is, did the price of that item, pizza, change? Well, the problem says the price of pizza changes from 5 to 7, so we'd have to say yes, which means our variable is a change in price. Now, if you look at your instructions, it says that when it's a price change, we will not be shifting. This line is correct. And what we'll do is we'll just simply label the information we know about both price and quantity supplied. We know that the original price of pizza is $5, so if this is 0, $5 would be above that. So I'm going to put 5 here on the y-axis. Okay. And I don't know the quantity of pizza that was being supplied at $5, but I'll go ahead and do my dotted lines to see where $5 would strike the supply curve, and that will kind of help me know the corresponding plot point, which would be quantity supplied. But again, we don't know it, so I'm just going to label that QS1. Okay. And then the next price, it says the price went from $5 up to $7, so somewhere higher than $5. I'll put $7. Okay. And again, we'll do the same thing with the dots. Mainly, we're just trying to see about where on the line quantity supplied would fall. Okay, so it would put me somewhere roughly in that area. Okay, so you just want to do a dotted line straight down. And when you hit the x-axis, we're going to label that QS2. Okay, which means $5 was the original price, so we can go ahead and just put price 1 or P1 and P2 for the second price. Okay, and so what we're saying is when price increases from $5 to $7, quantity supplied goes away from 0, it's also increasing, and that would match what we see in the law of supply, which tells us that we have labeled this correctly for a price change. Okay, so as you work through these, you want to put yourself in the position of the producer. What would you do? If it happens to be something that the producer is thinking about that is a future event, you still want to graph what's happening now. So if you thought, for instance, that you could get a higher price for your goods and services next weekend, then you would not want to sell as many now at the lower price. So you would actually decrease your supply. You would not make as much of your goods or services available for sale. You would hold them back, maybe at the warehouse or wherever you store them. And then in the future, if that price change does in fact go up, you would then put more stock out for sale of your good or service so that you could take advantage of the higher price. Now, a lot of you may be thinking, yeah, but consumers aren't going to buy things at the higher price because of the law of demand. And you are correct. But remember, while we graph supply, only look at things through the producer's perspective, that the higher price is an incentive to possibly have profit and definitely to cover cost, and so they're going to be more motivated to produce when they think they can get that higher price. Okay, and that will result in a shift to the right for non-price determinant reasons and a shift to the left when they decrease supply. Okay, if it's a price change, just do what we have done right here. If you have any questions, just feel free to contact me through Canvas, and I will be glad to answer them.